In an age where a woman's body image is increasingly the source of controversy, with skeletal fashion models often blamed for encouraging eating disorders, it may seem refreshing to learn of a society where big is considered beautiful.
I would not swap a plump lady for a scrawny one, for sure.
But this ancient culture that celebrates overweight women hides a shocking secret: the forced feeding of children as young as 7. Mauritania, a vast but sparsely populated country in West Africa. From the surf of its Atlantic coast to its harsh, desolate Saharan interior, it's a land of nomadic peoples, Arab Berbers to the north, black Africans to the south. A former French colony, Mauritania gained independence in 1960, when the capital Nouakchott was a small fishing settlement. Today, it's one of the largest cities in the Sahara and, in one sense, unique. For on the streets of Nouakchott, it's a fat woman, not a thin one, who turns heads. In Mauritania, it seems, slim just isn't in. Nouakchott's main hospital. An ambulance has arrived at the cardiology ward. The patient's name? Amy Sai, a mother of 3. Her heart and head are pounding, she complains. Symptoms of high blood pressure, most likely caused by her obesity. The doctors see patients like Amy every day. The World Health Organization estimates 1/4 of Mauritanian women are obese. Even educated men agree with the traditional view of what a woman should look like.
I think, as a Mauritanian man, that a woman should be heavier than normal, to be accepted into society as beautiful.
In Mauritania, among white Moor tribal groups, there's a centuries-old tradition of force-feeding girls to fatten them up for marriage. It's known as gavage, the French term used to describe the force-feeding of ducks and geese to enlarge their livers to produce the controversial delicacy foie gras.
She was fractured because of practice of gavage.
This woman was force-fed as a child 20 years ago, resulting in her becoming obese.
I was beaten and vomited again and again. My arm was pinched until it broke. I had to drink a full bowl of milk in the morning, at noon and at sunset. And this went on for 2 months non-stop. I was made to eat butter. I was very overweight.
She has heart problems linked to obesity. She says she was heavier, but because of poor health, she's been losing weight.
Force-feeding has wrecked Aminetou's health, but is the current generation of girls being spared the same fate? Mohamed Lamine Ould El Khattab is a former Mauritanian ambassador to several African countries. He says a fat woman's size signified she was well-fed and therefore wealthy.
Keep in mind that these Mauritanians used to live in the wilderness, in desert, and that life was very hard, very harsh and precarious, and that women are regarded as something fragile, something to be taken care of, something to be protected.
But in modern-day Mauritania, with the majority of the population concentrated in towns and the city, attitudes are changing, and it seems the political will exists to eradicate force-feeding.
If force-feeding does still exist, it needs to be fought against, with all means possible.
"400 kilometres northeast of Nouakchott, in the oppressively hot and wind-blown Western Sahara, lies Chinguetti, a 1,000-year-old city marooned by ever-encroaching desert. Was it possible that gavage, the forced fattening of young girls to improve their marriage prospects, might still be happening in this ancient place?
Heureusement, nous avons compris beaucoup avant.
We don't have this gavage because it's no longer fashionable. It's hated. But we certainly don't have any cases of anorexia. No, anorexia is something we haven't had yet. We think gavage is violent and shouldn't be allowed. So I disagree with people who say that Mauritania still practices gavage. It's something that happened in the past, we admit. But it's over.
Mais je peux vous dire, vous l'avez vu vous-même.
Chinguetti is also known as the Library of the Desert. Ancient manuscripts stored here record a long history of fat women.
Et il leur propose de manger ou de boire. Bois, drink.
The young girls were made to eat and drink, through torture if necessary. These forceps were used to pinch a girl's arm, forcing her to swallow the milk and couscous. If she was about to vomit, she would be pinched, so that the pain distracted her from the urge to be sick.
The distant dunes beyond Chinguetti were once lush and green. Hard to imagine this was savanna before the desert set in, turning rich pastures to rolling hills of sand. Rebecca lives in a nomadic village on the outskirts of Chinguetti. She's blind now, but can still vividly recall images of girls being fattened up against their will in order to be married off.
They would trap the girl's toes between two large sticks. The girl would have to finish a big bowl of camel's milk, and if she didn't, pain would be given by applying pressure on the sticks until she either drank up or threw up. Any vomit would be fed back to her, and in any case, when her father came home, he'd put 2 fingers down her throat, forcing her to throw up, and to make room for 2 further bowls of milk and couscous.
Nearby, preparing couscous outside her home, we came across 25-year-old Korea and more recent evidence of gavage. She told us she was force-fed as a child, but denies the practice still exists.
Gavage has become a thing of the past. There's less rain these days for grass to grow for grazing, fewer camels to produce milk. Times have changed. Husbands can't afford to have a fat wife lazing around and drinking and eating all day. And a thin woman would be fitter and healthier. It's better that way.
Force-feeding may no longer be practiced in Chinguetti, but there is no denying that throughout Mauritania, the fad for fat remains prevalent. And it seems, in the capital at least, women are merely turning to more modern methods to boost body weight. Sonia Salek is an activist campaigning for the rights of women and children. She says women, desperate to put on weight, buy drugs on the street, unsafe pills and potions they believe will help make them fat and beautiful. A woman can gain up to 30 kilograms in only a couple of months.
The artificial gavage is so dangerous. People don't realize the serious consequences of these products. They're ignorant, and others are aware of the dangers but want to be fat at all costs.
Sonia demonstrates just how easy it is to obtain appetite-enhancing drugs and substances that cause bloating from unscrupulous market traders.
The drugs are hidden in bags under the tables by traders, displaying wares such as clothing, jewelry and perfume. I asked one of the women about the fattening drugs, and she replied she had a lot for sale.
In only a few minutes, Sonia is offered the drugs and money changes hands. But just how harmful are these drugs, and can they really cause rapid weight gain?
Certain drugs will increase the appetite, and this is one of them. It will make a woman greedy. She will want to eat constantly. This medicine is for animals, including camels. It even has a picture of a camel on the box. But surprisingly, women don't hesitate to take it. I've seen patients who took a high dosage and suffered liver failure. A woman who puts on weight in this manner risks a lot of health problems.
Sonia's work with women and children takes her all over Mauritania, a country twice the size of France. She says so-called traditional gavage is still widely practiced, despite the efforts of the government and NGOs to consign it to the past. There is no law specifically prohibiting gavage, but acts that could harm children are illegal in Mauritania. Sunni is on her way to Aleg, a town 300 kilometres southeast of the capital. There, she says she knows families who continue to force-feed young girls.
If this practice goes on, this would not be accepted, would not be tolerated. It would not be allowed anyway. But what is forbidden in terms of law is one thing. What is done in remote areas by people who have always done the same thing is another thing.
Even the authorities admit the practice has not been fully eradicated.
Force feeding still exists in Mauritania, mainly in rural areas, because the people who live there are largely uneducated and isolated from modern society, which is why they've kept these traditions.
On arriving in Aleg, there was nothing to suggest these archaic traditions survived there. At first sight, these children seemed carefree and happy, but the reality could not have been more different. In 2001, a Mauritanian government survey of 68,000 women found 1 in 5 between the ages of 15 and 49 had been subjected to gavage or force feeding. And yet there are those who insist the practice has now ended.
When it comes to stuffing girls against their will, forcing them to eat beyond their need, that's something that is not accepted anymore.
But Sunni is about to discover otherwise. She's reached her destination, a remote village 4 hours' drive from the Mauritanian capital, Nouakchott. This is the home of Mahjouba and Noha. Just 7 years old, but their smiles conceal a tragic truth. For they're being forced to undergo gavage, and their relatives seem completely unashamed.
We force feed the girls. We take a little thin girl and we give her milk until she gets fat.
Under a corrugated iron roof fenced in by wire mesh, Mahjouba and Noha are eating a high-calorie breakfast of couscous and litres of cow's milk.
The obesity speeds up puberty and rapidly transforms the girl's body. She starts her period earlier than normal because of the fattening process. That's our aim.
And Noha's father is also content to see his daughter being force-fed.
Having a fat wife means that you're being generous to her, treating her well. You're giving her everything you have, so the other men will say good things about you.
When asked about their ordeal, Mahjouba and Noha have only one response.
ما سمعتك. we want to be fat. He says. غير شو ما سيات عندك العليات السمانات شنو ما عندك؟ زينات عندك ولا شيء ما زين. I find them beautiful.
On and on it goes, seemingly without end. More couscous, followed by more milk, followed by more couscous. And the girls seem powerless to refuse. Noha's grandmother reaches for a pair of bamboo tongs as Mahjouba vomits.
Par exemple, la fille qui s'appelle Mahjouba. Elle m'a traumatisée.
I was traumatized by Mahjouba's plight. She was so sick, so weak, and vomiting. This little girl is just starting to be force-fed. She's only 7. The other girls are more used to it. It shocks me a lot as a mother and as a campaigner for human rights.
She demonstrates how the tongs were once used to ensure gavage victims were compliant. She claims such abuse is no longer practiced, but the fact the tools remain so close to hand seems suspicious.
Noha's arm hurts because of the pinching and squeezing, but her mother refused to roll up her daughter's sleeves and reveal her injuries. because she fears being accused of child abuse. She realizes the harm she's causing to Noha, but still she continues.
I force them. When they feel sick, I pinch them to prevent them from vomiting. I threaten and sometimes beat them.
La fille qui avait la chemise verte.
Noha runs many times to the toilet to vomit because she can't do it in front of her mother. You saw her mother pinching her to distract her from throwing up. Noha's mother told me Noha vomits out of sight so she can return to drink more milk. But her mother is happy with that because they say the more a girl vomits, the more her stomach widens and she can drink large amounts of milk.
Mais elle va vomir pour vider un peu le ventre et revenir encore prendre le lait.
In the stifling heat, Majuba looks listless and exhausted. But the bowl is effectively bottomless. It will be refilled the moment it's empty. The girls are reaching breaking point. The meal had begun with smiles, but now only tears. Family and friends all around, but seemingly no one to turn to.
I don't care if she's upset. This won't hurt her. It's good for her. When I was force-fed as a child, I cried too and vomited. I didn't like the gavage either. But as I got older, I started doing it to myself, and then I liked it. And when I was their age, I wept and I ran away to vomit, just like they do now.
Majuba is forced to drink yet more milk. Noha may have already been sick during her frequent trips to the outhouse, but that doesn't stop her mother commanding her to finish the bowl. Noha's relief is evident, and a brief respite from the pressure to gorge permits a smile. But regardless of time-honoured traditions, both girls are unwitting victims of child abuse.
C'est quelque chose qu'il faut interdire par la loi.
Force feeding is a practice of violence against children. It should never be accepted, this type of practice, that will give a girl heart problems, leading to an early death. The immediate effect of gavage on the girl is the suffering. She's a battered girl. It's catastrophic. She'll always be depressed in her life and subjugated.
But Noha's mother sounds far from subjugated, as she expresses a wish for Noha to grow up as a normal Mauritanian woman.
Mauritanian men like women to be pleasing to their eyes and to their hands. I want the girls to be fat and big so they can get married fast and have children.
But such a happy ending is by no means guaranteed. In the years to come, it could be Majuba or Noha on this operating table. The patient is having her gallbladder removed, a common procedure in Mauritania. Hundreds of obese women undergo this surgery every year, and this is why the gallbladder choked with cubes of cholesterol.
This is a fat. All this is a fat.
In the cardiology ward, Amy Sai is up to receiving visitors, including her baby girl. But although she admits to wanting to shed some weight, she still prefers to be fat than thin.
I think all Mauritanians love women like me because I'm big.
But is ill health and untimely death the price worth paying? The government thinks Mauritanians are getting the message.
The gavage in the cities is starting to disappear because people are conscious now of the health implications. But in the countryside, where people are less educated, gavage continues. But because parents prefer their daughters to go to school these days, they don't want to distract them from their studying. So gavage is decreasing actually.
Force feeding is a part of the cultural legacy, the heritage of Mauritania. It was born in the wide expanses of desert, in the open tents. But it's not easy to impose a new way of life on people living in rural areas and to eradicate their traditions.
It's early evening at the sports stadium in Nouakchott. It mightn't be fashionable or culturally condoned, but these women are trying to lose weight.
They don't appreciate very well the women which are here to make sports. Because me, for example, I can give you an example. When I was working here, someone told me, just an example between others, told me, why are you trying to be so thin? It's not a necessary thing. It will not be beautiful on you. Me, I don't want to be fat, just want to be in the middle. I don't like to be very thin, but not to be so fat. To be in the best thing is middle.
My idea or my opinion, I like this woman, thin woman, and I like the woman to make sport. I think the young people, they like the thin now, the thin woman.
In the Mauritanian capital, women are literally exercising their free will to decide for themselves the right balance between beauty and health. But across this sprawling country, in far-off towns and villages, Mauritania is deeply rooted in its culture and traditions. And girls like Majuba and Noha remain trapped in a tragic fate.